You're driving with your family. In your rearview mirror, a pickup flying at 120 miles/h, driver's blackout drunk. You have 3 seconds. Swerve and kill your kids in the ditch, or take the hit from behind and pray they survive. You have 3 seconds. What do? Today you'll learn about 5 decisions that turn children's laughter into death screams. Warning, after this video, you'll never walk past a drunk with car keys the same way again. August 19, 2024, Fort Worth, Texas. Just after midnight, most people were sleeping peacefully in their beds at home. But on Interstate I-35W, a tragedy was unfolding that would shock the entire city. Eduardo Gonzalez, a 19-year-old kid who wasn't even old enough to legally buy alcohol, had spent the evening drinking. His black Camaro was littered with empty beer cans. The smell of booze was so strong that police officers could smell it from several yards away. Now answer me honestly, would you jump into a burning car to save a stranger? Most people say yes, but when it comes to reality, but Gonzalez wasn't just drinking. He was racing down the interstate at 119 miles per hour on a public road where there could be children, families, ordinary people. In an ordinary sedan ahead rode a family of 5, 3 adults and 2 children. Maybe they were returning from a family dinner. Maybe the kids were sleeping, tired from a long day. They felt safe, buckled in, following all traffic rules. Witness Jarvis Hunter described what he saw in his rearview mirror. All you could see was light coming at you closer and closer. I was thinking, oh God, this is about to happen. And it happened. When 3,500 pounds of maxed-out Camaro slammed into the family sedan, the kinetic energy released was equal to a ton of TNT exploding. The impact was so powerful, it threw the family car against the wall like a toy. Metal scraped against metal, glass flew everywhere, and then fire. Terrifying, all-consuming fire. Witnesses say other drivers jumped out of their cars and ran to the burning sedan, ignoring the deadly danger. They desperately tried to break the blazing windows, get people out, but it was too late. All 5, 3 adults and 2 innocent children, burned alive in their car that had become a red-hot metal furnace. The soul-crushing screams that witnesses heard still haunt them in nightmares. The suffocating smell of burning flesh carried along the interstate for several miles. And Eduardo Gonzalez? He survived. They pulled him from the mangled Camaro with serious but non-fatal injuries. When police questioned him at the hospital, his speech was so slurred from alcohol, they could barely understand what he was mumbling. Blood alcohol level, 0.08, 0.15, 0.19. At that level of alcohol, reaction time increases 5-fold. Gonzalez had turned himself into a guided death missile. Officer Daniel Segura said afterward, "This happens too often. If you know someone who's been drinking, please do everything you can to keep that person from getting behind the wheel, because it's not worth everyone's life." Picture this. The family was listening to a children's playlist called Songs for the Long Road on their final trip. The music stopped forever on You Are My Sunshine. A mother will never sing that song to her children again, because they're gone. But for the 5 burned people, these words came too late. Gonzalez made the decision to drink and race down the interstate at deadly speed. That decision turned an ordinary family trip into a fiery nightmare. Now he sits in prison, charged with 5 counts of vehicular manslaughter. But the family he killed will never come home. May 1st, 2025, Island Park, Idaho. A scenic spot by Lake Henry, where tourists from around the world come to admire nature's beauty. But on this day, beauty turned into nightmare. Isaiah Moreno from Humble, Texas, had spent the night drinking. A lot of drinking. His blood alcohol level was 0.20%, more than twice the legal limit. But he still got behind the wheel of his Dodge Ram. Did you know that every 52 minutes someone in the U.S. dies in a drunk driving crash? That means, while you're watching this video, somewhere an innocent person is already dying. A tourist Mercedes full of international travelers was peacefully driving down U.S. Highway 20. You could hear conversations in different languages in the cabin: Chinese, Italian, English. People were sharing travel experiences, taking photos, making plans for the next day. And then the unthinkable happened. Moreno crossed the center line at high speed. The Mercedes driver saw the approaching truck at the last second. A scream of terror caught in his throat as he realized the collision was inevitable. When 5,200 pounds of Dodge Ram met 4,200 pounds of Mercedes at 70 mph, the laws of physics wrote a death sentence in fire. But that was just the beginning of the nightmare. Sparks from the crash ignited gasoline, and both vehicles instantly turned into a roaring inferno. 7 people, including Moreno himself, burned alive in metal coffin, blood alcohol 0.00, 0.20. At that level of alcohol, a person is on the verge of alcohol poisoning. Moreno was basically a living corpse behind the wheel. Witnesses described this horror as something out of a horror movie. Flames shot dozens of feet into the sky, turning daylight into apocalyptic glow. The smell of burning flesh and molten metal was so strong that people were vomiting on the roadside, hundreds of meters away. The screams from the burning cars gradually died down, and that was the most chilling part. Captain Chris Wiedek said later, "This tragedy should be a wake-up call. But for the 7 people who burned alive, this alarm came too late." Here's what will completely break your heart. The tourists kept a shared travel blog called Discovering America. Their last post was a photo of the sunrise over the lake, with the caption, "The most beautiful morning of our lives." They didn't know this morning would be their last. Moreno made the decision to drink and drive. That decision turned a beautiful lake into a mass murder scene. And the most chilling thing is that he became a victim of his own crime. But this is just a small piece of the human nightmare. Ahead lie stories even more brutal, even more terrifying. May 14, 2024, Marion County, Florida, 6:45 a.m. Just another morning for farm workers heading to work in a packed bus. They were laughing, making plans for the day, thinking about their families. They had no idea that just a few miles away, Brian Howard was ending his night in the most horrifying way possible. This 41-year-old had just smoked THC oil and popped prescription pills. His eyes were bloodshot, his speech slurred, but he still got behind the wheel of his pickup truck. Now tell me straight up, should drunk drivers get life sentences when entire families die? Because what you'll see next will make you reconsider your views on justice. Picture the horror. The bus driver sees in his rearview mirror a pickup truck racing toward them at insane speed. He realizes the crash is inevitable. 1 second, another second, and then the impact was so brutal that the bus smashed through a fence and flipped upside down. 8 people died instantly from multiple skull fractures. Over 40 were injured. Blood streaked the mangled ceiling. An injured man's scream rose above the hiss of leaking fuel, and shards of windshield glittered like deadly diamonds in the sunrise. But the most chilling part was yet to come. When they questioned Howard, his eyes were so bloodshot it looked like he was seeing the world through a red fog of death. He failed every sobriety test but kept denying his guilt. Blood alcohol level 0.08, 0.15, 0.25. At that level, most people would already be in an alcoholic coma. But Howard could still kill. Deputy Sheriff Robert Bosniak was first on scene. What he saw still haunts him today. 13 people were still trapped inside the overturned bus, he recalls with a tremor in his voice. The groans of the wounded, the smell of blood and gasoline, and that terrifying sight of mangled metal. In buses without seat belts, the probability of death in a rollover increases fourfold. These people were doomed from the start. Now Brian Howard sits in jail without bail, charged with 8 counts of vehicular manslaughter. But for the victims' families, this won't bring their loved ones back. 8 lives cut short because of one selfish decision. Want to know what makes this story especially heartbreaking? The workers kept a shared group chat called Road Home. The last message was, "Finishing early today, we'll make it home for dinner with the family." 8 families never waited for their loved ones for dinner, forever. But alcohol can turn people into more than just accidental killers. Sometimes it becomes a tool of deliberate evil. June 29, 2014, Houston, Texas. Sam Houston Beltway, 11 p.m. A time when most families are gathering at home, watching TV, putting kids to bed. But the Guzman family was still on the road. 4 adults and 1 child in a white Ford F-150. Maybe they were returning from a family event. Maybe the child was sleeping in the back seat, tired from a long day. They didn't know that Efrain Carmona, a 34-year-old flatbed truck driver, had just finished his evening at a bar. His blood alcohol level was 0.23%. nearly 3 times the legal limit. That's a level where most people would already be unconscious. But Carmona could still drive, or thought he could. Drivers with a blood alcohol level of 0.23% are 25 times more likely to cause fatal crashes. Carmona turned his truck into a weapon of mass destruction. Open alcohol containers were scattered around his truck cab. The suffocating smell of alcohol was so strong, it seemed you could get drunk just being near it. His eyes were cloudy, his speech slurred, but he kept driving down the dark road. Blood alcohol, 0.08, 0.15, 0.23. At a blood alcohol level of 0.23%, Carmona should have been unconscious. Instead, he became the angel of death on wheels. And then, the unthinkable happened. Carmona, completely disoriented by alcohol, entered the oncoming traffic lanes. He was racing straight toward the Guzman family at highway speed. Imagine the F-150 driver's horror when he saw the truck's blinding headlights rushing straight at them through the night darkness. A second of ice-cold realization, a desperate attempt to swerve, a scream of animal terror, and then a monstrous head-on collision of 2 steel coffins. The sound of the crash could be heard for miles around. Metal screeched demonically into metal. Glass flew in sharp shards everywhere. And then, fire. Horrifying fire that turned the family pickup into a blazing metal coffin. All 5 Guzman family members died instantly. 4 adults and 1 innocent child. Their bodies were so badly burned that identification took several days. DNA had to be collected from bone fragments, and Efrain Carmona, he survived. They pulled him from the mangled truck cab alive. When police tried to talk to him, he flat out refused to cooperate. Even after killing 5 innocent people, he was still only thinking about himself. Carmona was sentenced to 50 years in prison on 5 counts of intoxication manslaughter. But for the Guzman family, justice came too late. One selfish decision to drink and drive wiped an entire family off the face of the earth. Now here's the detail that will tear your soul apart. Investigators found a family group chat called Home Sweet Home on the victim's phone. The last message was, "Already on our way home, Mom. Make our favorite dinner. We miss you." Mom is still standing at the stove, waiting for children who will never return. And finally, a story that shows how alcohol can turn a person into a real monster. March 26, 2018. California coast near Westport, a place of breathtaking beauty where 100-foot cliffs tower over the turbulent waters of the Pacific Ocean. But the beauty of this place would soon be stained by one of the most chilling family crimes in history. Jennifer Hart sat behind the wheel of her GMC Yukon. Next to her, her spouse, Sarah. In the back seat, 6 adopted children aged 12 to 19. It seemed like an ordinary family trip. But this was a death ride. Answer me honestly. Do you consider this murder or suicide? Because what Jennifer Hart did goes beyond ordinary drunk driving. Jennifer had 0.102% alcohol in her blood, above the legal limit. Sarah had toxic levels of Benadryl. The children suspected nothing. They thought they were going on another family outing. What was going through Jennifer's mind as she approached the cliff's edge? Did she see the deadly terror in the children's eyes when they realized what was happening? Did she hear their desperate screams as the car left solid ground and began falling into the abyss? The fall lasted only seconds, but those seconds must have felt like an eternity of torment to the children. 100 feet of free fall, the car helplessly flipping in the air, children screaming in horror, and then the crushing impact on sharp rocks. Height, 100 feet. Fall speed, 50 meters. Time of agony, 2.5 seconds, 2.5 seconds. That's exactly how long the Hart children realized they were dying. When rescuers reached the crash site, they saw a scene that haunts them to this day. Twisted metal mixed with shattered human remains. Foaming ocean waves methodically washed crimson blood from black rocks. And among all this chaos, Jennifer Hart's body, still strapped in with her seatbelt. But the most chilling discovery was yet to come. 15-year-old Devonte Hart, the same boy who became famous for a photo of him hugging a police officer during protest, was never found. His body is still somewhere in the ocean, among the cold waves. The Hart family was under supervision by social services due to complaints of child abuse. Jennifer knew the walls were closing in, Coroner Greg Pizarro, who examined the bodies, said he'd never seen anything like it. Multiple skull fractures, broken necks, shattered bones. His voice trembled as he described what he saw. The Hart family looked perfect on the outside. They hugged strangers at festivals, preached love and unity. But behind closed doors, horror was brewing. Social services received complaints that children were starved as punishment. Sarah Hart had been convicted of domestic violence. And when the walls started closing in, when social workers began asking questions, Jennifer made a monstrous decision. She decided it was better to kill the entire family than face the consequences. Alcohol gave her the courage to do the unthinkable. 6 innocent children paid for it with their lives. Conclusion: remember these stories the next time you see a drunk person reaching for car keys. Remember the faces of the dead children, the soul-crushing screams of burning people, the inconsolable tears of parents who lost their kids. Tell us in the comments, was this drunk driving or something darker? In a world where people die on roads every day because of drunk drivers, any of us could be the next victim or the next killer. If you or someone you know struggles with alcoholism, call the hotline 1-800-662-4357 SAMHSA. If you need a ride instead of driving drunk, Uber, Lyft is always better than a child's coffin. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video, if we live to see it.